yesterday, a movie that was supposed to come out last October 2018, got pushed back to June, June release. Danny Boyle at the helm. You'll know him from Train Spotting 2, Slumdog Millionaire, 28 Days Later,
You
127
you
Hours.
almost did Bond 25.
Almost. Who's doing that now? I forgot.
Cary Fukunawa.
Yeah, that's right.
And a rough shoot so far from what we know.
what it sounds like. Anyways, also this was written by Richard Curtis, who has been a romantic comedy writer, probably most famously for Notting Hill, among others. Sitting at a paltry 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, and only grossed 24 million worldwide box office, which, I mean, I guess for the box office this summer, that's could have been worse.
I mean,
so
here's the thing with the box office, real quick. 17 million domestic for a cheap movie is actually not that bad in this marketplace. That's much more than Late Night or Booksmart made in their first weekends.
Pretty crazy.
And those are better movies, So I think honestly, it's a bit of a win for was it Paramount? Whoever put it out. Just because the cinema score was strong, this probably will have decent legs, and it was only like a $26 million budget. So this movie actually will probably be a decent win for the studio, but unfortunately, it's not actually that earned.
Yeah, I think 60% is kind of right around where I would rate this movie. It's disappointing in the sense that the concept is, I mean, it's a slam dunk. It's if you do an elevator pitch for this movie, you're like, holy shit,
the highest high concepts.
But then to boil it down to basically like a romantic comedy felt so disappointing in terms of what they could have done and what it was. I really just left the theater being like, the Beatles are good. Beatles are very impressive as a band. The fact that they wrote and composed all these songs together, and like at least like 50, 60 Beatles songs, even if you're just like a regular person, pretty insane. That was my main takeaway. What about you?
Yeah. Similar to Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man, it is a movie that makes you want to listen to the back catalog. Mm-hmm. And yesterday licensed like damn near 20 Beatles songs. That certainly wasn't cheap. And the best moments of the movie is when you're hearing those songs, usually from the vocals of Himesh Patel, who I did like in this movie. But just, that concept, which is the whole central conceit of the trailer. The trailer doesn't really let on that it's more rom-com-y. It really just kind of focuses on the story, and like they even tease the whole like he'll get exposed later on, right? They all tease that in the trailers, but it just feels like Curtis, whoever did another pass on the script, they didn't know where to take it. They just kind of threw their hands up and said, actually, let's just pivot on this. And they don't really do any exploration of the concept, despite the fact that anyone can think of so many interesting things you'd want to know or you want to see the story explore, or at least not at. It just doesn't make any effort to do that. It ultimately is just a very conventional story that happens to have this high concept. What if people forgot about the Beatles thing? Paste it on top. So yeah, I was just disappointed in the structure of the movie, because like it's not bad at all. I think the movie's fine, but it's just really disappointing because you can just really easily think of a better path for the plot. So
right, yeah, the story could have very easily been exploring the impact the Beatles have on society currently, how things would have changed if they hadn't existed or people couldn't remember their music. And what it became was a vehicle to express despair by being wrapped up in a system of greed, and to look at what it means to not be truthful. And it's highlighted by a meeting that Jack, played by Himesh Patel, has with John Lennon, who lives in this universe, which I felt got
killed. That is interesting. They don't go there though.
Right, exactly. There's no examination of what it means that he didn't live. You know, they just basically talk about, they use him as a vehicle for Himesh, you know, for Jack to realize, oh, I need to be truthful and I need to go after Lily James, Ellie.
Yes.
Very, just so much potential in all these moments that they just didn't want to explore, because I think it probably felt too overwhelming to the story that they decided to tell.
Right. And I mean, you mentioned it. Like, what if the Beatles were received differently? They tease this twice. When he sings Yesterday, and like that's when Jack learns what's going on, and they're all like, you know, they're impressed. But then he's like, "This is one of the greatest songs ever." No, I mean, that was good, mate, but you know, it wasn't.
It's not Coldplay.
It's not Fix You.
It's not Fix You.
And then it happens again when he's playing Let It Be for his parents, and like they just keep interrupting him and aren't giving him a chance. And I was like, that would have been cool. Like, what if we took it that way? But no, like he puts out all the Beatles songs, mainly Paul songs, in a scattershot order, of course. And then he goes and sees Lennon. Not the songs he remembered, apparently. Whatever. But I mean, there were a few other things too. Like, we can talk about Ed Sheeran. I actually quite liked Ed Sheeran in this, but the whole scene with his label, with all the clapping and like the label exec being really money hungry, but just it was an obviously lampooning of the major label system and how it affects pop music. But it just had it, or at least for me, that like they thought they were being like really clever and like, see how the labels always fuck over the artists, but like it wasn't subtle at all. And that was extended by Kate McKinnon's character as his agent or label representative, who is just like openly talking about how greedy and power hungry she is and how she'll take control of his masters and make most of the money. Like, it just felt like it was almost from a different movie. Like this weird commentary on labels. Meanwhile, you're not actually exploring any other of the more interesting thoughts. I don't know. It just bit of a Frankenstein movie.
Yeah, and you know, you have some really talented people in this. Lily James, I thought, was pretty good. You know, you remember her from Baby Driver. She's also in Hobbs and Shaw. No,
She's in Darkest Hour. She's in the Mamma Mia movie.
Mamma Mia, that was the other one.
Really, really charismatic actress, but she has very little to do in this, fortunately.
You have Kate McKinnon in this too, whose character is basically an 80s caricature of a villain. You know, it's hard to really even describe how outlandish she is and just how like vile of a person they make her out to be.
Right.
And just totally unrealistic, which, I mean, you suspend belief for a movie like this anyway, because the guy wakes up and the Beatles and Coca-Cola and cigarettes don't exist in this world. I mean, as well as Oasis, which is a pretty funny moment. And also, I mean, I have a lot of things to nitpick, but one nitpick I just want to say while it's on my mind, he plays this thing at the end to win Lily James back, right? And the song that made her fall in love with him is Wonderwall, which he could totally just have played Wonderwall there at the end, and that could have been like a interesting like callback to like win her back and whatever, like jar this memory. And he just doesn't. He doesn't play any songs. Just like, yeah, I love you, and these are the 4 people that actually wrote these songs, and here's a mixtape. And Ringo Starr's name isn't actually Ringo Starr, so he doesn't even give the real person credit, which is very interesting. You know, it's just a stage name. So this person in this universe would be like, no one knows who the fuck Ringo Starr is, but Paul McCartney and John Lennon and George Harrison are real people. Just very, I guess it's befitting the Beatles lore anyway. Yeah, to go back to some of the nitpicks, you said Ed Sheeran, you really liked him. What did you like about his performance?
It just felt like it was very self-aware, bit of acting from Ed. Like, he's kind of just making fun of himself. And like when what's his name was like, he's like, oh, listen to the album, man. And Ed's like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, didn't like the rapping. Think you should leave that to the brothers. So that was hilarious. Like, the fact that Ed would let that line be spoke to him, it's just quite self-aware. And I think he always kind of comes across that way. I think of the Thrones cameo. But
was it positioning him as
using Sheeran as like the Deus Ex Machina to jumpstart Jack's career? I liked it. I just thought it was kind of entertaining, even if the whole "let's write a song in 5 minutes" battle didn't seem likely. Also, nor did him playing like a 500-person room in Russia. Like he's already at peak Ed Sheeran. We know that songs like "Shape of You" are out, so this is like, you know,
He's selling
guy,
out Wembley.
right? Billions of streams, guy. He sells out arenas everywhere, not just in the States, not just in England.
But
So
Moscow, he's playing what? House of Blues?
yeah, House of Blues Moscow, man. No way.
Oh man, so and I mean, there's a lot with Ed Sheeran. I didn't particularly like his performance. I also felt like this in some way is saying he's like the Beatles of today, which I
Yeah,
don't know. That's a bit
I
of
don't
a
know about that part. But like I
yeah,
like when his dad is like, "Hey, you kind of look like Ed Sheeran." He's like, "I am."
yeah,
Like it's just kind of funny stuff. But
yeah.
yeah,
Dave, if you were Ed Sheeran and you sold out Wembley Stadium and all your fans, similar to Jackson, Maine in A Star Is Born, all your fans are there to see you, and then you're like, oh, and here's this other person that's going to come out and do some songs for you. How do you think they'd react to that? I guess if it's this guy in this world, maybe well.
hey guys, the noise ordinance. We can't change it, so I'm gonna take 15 minutes away from you guys and give it to this dude.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're saying this guy is the Beatles of that universe, that's kind of cool. But
Yeah.
man, just that's such a strange move.
Well, we kind of mentioned like how the songs be received if they came out today, and like they, as you said, they don't have any interest in going there. But it is kind of weird that that kind of music propelled him to superstardom, enigmatic cult of personality. Like
Hmm,
it just felt like we kind of skipped a bunch of steps
yeah.
because we are expected to believe this is happening today. So I think if you're a music fan, you get disappointed over that, and if you're just like a movie fan, you just kind of are disappointed in the simplicity and the fact that they just ran away from the concept at the end of the day. Like I was really bummed when the people that are kind of haunting him in the background and like noticing the Beatles songs, they're just happy that Jack is sharing the songs because they actually aren't musical people, so they couldn't have done it. And I was
Yeah.
like it just felt like a surrender. It's like,
Mhm.
oh no, not a big deal, and kind of like a weird fake out. And I mean, I'm not a screenwriter. I'm not saying I know how to make this movie better, but it just felt like at every possible chance to take it in a more interesting direction, they went down the middle instead.
Yeah. Although I was disappointed by them not confronting him and actually just being happy about what happened. But
Exactly.
it did have the best line for me, which is when they asked him why he named it Hey Dude. They're like, Hey Dude, really? And he's like, stupid Ed Sheeran made me do it. I really thought that was funny. And I guess yeah, good on Ed that he allowed that. I didn't particularly love Ed Sheeran in this, but that's neither here nor there really at this
Mm.
point. Lily
Actually,
James.
the thing about the "Hey Dude" moment, what real quick is like that's another little moment. It's like, we would tweak these songs for today. Hey Jude, nah, hey dude.
Right.
Like this little twist of like how the label would be involved, how the music industry would think today about that music. But it's easy
Mhm.
to taste. They just ignore it. Um, but yeah, I mean, what do you think of Lily James? Because she's always been a performer I've enjoyed. But did you like her in this movie? Given that she's just kind of there to fall in love with Jack and wait for Jack to realize the same.
Yeah, I did like her a lot. I thought every time she was on screen, I found her very entertaining. I thought she was better than Himesh Patel, who kind of had to have this wide-eyed like exasperation the whole time, which I think handcuffed him a little bit. He never really got to like just be that star. He was always kind of like, I can't believe this is happening to me type thing. Um, but with Lily James, I guess like my question is why couldn't she go to LA with him? Because she has to teach these little kids in school, even though she told him don't become a teacher. Like she obviously doesn't think it's that great of a profession compared to music, so why not just go with
Interesting.
him? And I felt like that was just such a stereotypical rom com trope, and again another thing where they could have made it a lot more interesting if he told her about that he's remembering these songs that he didn't write, and then she had a conflict of wanting to be with him because of that, but instead it's like, oh no, I can't leave my life here and teaching these fourth graders, and you're just a big shot LA person, and you have to make a decision, either give up all your fame for me or
Right.
we can't be together. It's like, this feels very tropey and very just stereotypical.
Yeah. Once that whole Liverpool moment happens after he's doing the
Mm-hmm.
Strawberry Fields thing, it's just like, oh, here we go. Now I get the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean,
so much potential.
yeah, like Danny Boyle too. It's like he's like one of the great directors still working. Like he has a great CV, and I'm not even the biggest Slumdog Millionaire fan, but I mean, this just feels like such a step down. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, I'd really be curious to see how like this. I think this is a script that maybe went around a little bit, if I remember right, but I'd be curious to see what other drafts took it. Just because again, the concept is really so dynamite.
Yeah, that probably make a cool Twilight Zone episode.
No, nice.
maybe someday they will. Before we go, I wanted to ask you, because I don't know if we've ever talked about on the podcast. Where are you at with the Beatles? Are you a fan?
Yeah, I know all the Beatles hits. I like the Beatles, good Beatles songs. I haven't really dove in on like Sergeant Pepper's or the White Album or anything like that. But yeah, I know, like the 30 songs everyone knows, like all those songs.
Do you have a favorite Beatles song or album?
Don't have a favorite album. Favorite song? Good one. Good question. Really like Come Together. Really like Help.
Early stuff.
And then like like Hey Jude, obviously is fantastic.
Yeah, Hey Jude, not undeniable. That and like Yesterday are just like two of the best songs ever written. I really stand for like that early to middles Beatles, like Revolver and Rubber Soul. Probably In My Life is my favorite Beatles song. But it really jumps around. Like I have a friend that every like couple months will just like ask you like where we're at with the Beatles, like what's our top 5, and I feel like every time there's like a 2 or 3 different ones in there, along with some of the ones I usually have. So they're just so good and so diverse. Go watch Yesterday, ignore all the Ed Sheeran stuff on the soundtrack, and then dive in from there. If you haven't really dove into the Beatles, be my recommendations.